Have you ever dreamed so hard that the next day you thought your dream was reality? If yes, what was your dream? I once broke the news to my family that our next door neighbor had died. A couple of days later I had to explain that I was mistaken and that she is alive and well. Did you tell your neighbor? And if so, how did they react? No, I didn't mention it. The neighbor is elderly, so it would definitely be rude. In the dream my wife told me about it. I was totally convinced until I saw the lights on the next night. When I commented about the lights being on as being odd, my wife was like, what the hell are you talking about? I said, you told me yesterday that neighbor passed away, didn't you? Of course my parents were friends with the neighbor, so I had called them earlier in the day to break the bad news. So I got to call and unbreak it and get made fun of for not being able to tell dreams from reality. Oh, that's too bad. As someone who's been mistaken for having died myself, it's always entertaining to see how other people handle the weirdness of such a situation. That sounds awesome, honestly. If someone mistakenly thought I was dead and I was aware of it, I'd probably just send them a text out of the blue saying I lived, bitch. I dreamed my dog was at my brother's house, being neglected by my brother and harassed by his little kids. I woke up angry, pissed that I was going to have to drive in the rain to get my dog and bring him home. For probably a full minute I just lay in bed, absolutely fuming. Then I remembered that my dog had died almost 10 years ago. It was like being punched in the gut. Not only was I sad about my dog, but I was also really disturbed and disoriented. It felt like my brain had malfunctioned. The feeling of being disconnected from my mind. It was a scary thing. I had a dream that I fell off of a cliff and was heading for solid ground. I had heard that you usually wake up right before you hit the ground, but not me. I hit the ground and everything went black. I remember my eyes were closed shut and I kept asking myself, am I dead? I woke up in my bed and thought I was a ghost who didn't move on into the afterlife and that I was stuck in purgatory or something. Needless to say, my mom was weirded out when I asked her if I was dead with a dead serious face. I still remember that years later. Those types of nightmares suck. I had a similar when I was a kid. In the dream I was seated pillion behind my mother on her scooter when a giant pothole appeared on the road and the impact made me fall on the road with a great impact. My brain made me feel the pain. I could feel the injury where the skin had been torn and the gash on my face. Shit. I hate those nightmares. I have a specially recurring one in which I'm sucked into a vacuum of space. I actually choke and wodge up coughing trying to get air in my lungs. This might be kind of dark, but have you considered you might have undiagnosed sleep apnea? Your brain might just be tying a story to the physical sensation of not being able to breathe. Nope. I told my doctor already. Not apnea. I've had dreams where the places I go feel so familiar. I wake up and wonder if they may actually exist. Keep dreaming about meeting up with different friends and family to hang out, and then we end up shopping in a store. Same specific store. Same setup and merch. Different dreams throughout the years though. Never been to a store like that in real life though. Same thing for me. I have had multiple dreams. All with different plot lines, so not exactly recurring. At the same shopping mall which doesn't exist. Is it for some reason a very compressed mall that looks like a labyrinth and it's all yellowish with rounded entrances and sometimes hard to go upstairs because the stairs are awfully tall? I know it's really specific, but imagine if someone has actually been on that dream mall tool mayo. I have dreamt about that place like 5 times, but all on different plot lines too. Dude, that is crazy. Freaking out right now because I've been in a similar or nearly exact recurring location in many of my dreams with almost claustrophobic yellowish rounded entrances like you described. But in my dream location there's a little river under the building and foliage around the walls. And I'm often running around or looking for something in these dreams. It's crazy to hear someone describe such a similar location in their dreams, haha. I have also been to this dream mall. Is it located in some vaguely European city? I know the little river and greenery too. Are the elevators kinda like those tubes at the bank drive-thru? OMG, I hope you know what I'm talking about. The one where you get up, sit on the bed for 5 minutes dreading that you have to get up and then reluctantly get ready and go to whatever you needed to go only to realize that you actually pressed snooze on your alarm instead of getting up and that you're still sleeping. Getting up twice sucks. I've had that a few times. K died a week ago at age 33. Every night I dream he's alive, and every morning I look for him and have to remember he is gone and not coming home. Sometimes multiple times a day because my sleep is erratic. It was the same for the weeks of his hospitalization. I don't know if I want the dreams to end or not. I'm very sorry. Yes, I was studying Rhapsody in Blue at the time, and there's this tricky repeated note passage near the end that I just couldn't get. One night I dreamed that I absolutely nailed it. Next day, I thought it was something that actually happened. Went around cocky and not practicing until sometime around noon when I realized that it was a dream and I was an idiot. I just fell in love with that song and now somebody is talking about it on the internet. I'm assuming you play clarinet. My second guess is piano. Ah, piano, yeah. Yeah, it happens a surprising amount. My brain likes to take information and predictions on how my day will go that I made the previous day and use it in dreams. Probably the most recent and memorable ones is when I had dreamed about starting one of my major yearly projects, only to realize halfway through my day that I had dreamed about it and had yet to start. It isn't a particularly fun phenomenon, as it confuses me more often than not. I can distinguish the realistic ones that are implausible, like ones that involve action movie-like scenarios, almost immediately upon waking, but the subtle shit mixes with the other things I can recall about that specific scenario, and is harder to distinguish because it's usually a small thing that's entirely plausible. I just replied with a similar post. Exciting. And sad. To know I'm not alone. Yup. Very weird when your brain mixes the real stuff with the dream stuff. I had a dream my mom called me to tell me my childhood neighbor died. I didn't realize it was a dream until 6 months later when I was home for the holidays and saw her alive. During those 6 months you never once asked or mentioned the neighbor? What's so weird about it? It's not like she was their best friend. Surprised no one else has mentioned this. I haven't had a cigarette in 19 years. Numerous times I've dreamt that I had one, and it led to weeks, in the dream, of being a smoker again. I've woken up bummed out about it, but with a reluctant acceptance about it. Like, well, I'm back at it. Might as well be back at it attitude that is hard to shake. I have these same dreams about food addiction. I constantly dream about the things that contributed to my obesity. Snacks, Chinese food, pizza, and I binge on these things. They feel real. But 140 pounds later I'm glad they aren't. The cravings those dreams bring back though, it's always so love/hate. I thought I had a GF. I woke up sad. As a teenager, I had some wild, occasionally messed up sex dreams. I would wake up really disappointed every time. Yo, last night I had a sex dream. It was weird cause it stopped halfway through, and when I left to go find the person I found Trump, who was tied up, being held at gunpoint by Joe Biden. Shit was wild. We need more information please. About what lol? The sex? Cause that was wild as well. Or the Biden pointing a gun at Trump? Talking to my mom. Took a few sad minutes to remember she's dead. It's so bittersweet. My dad passed a few years back, and I recently had a dream about him where he was sitting in his car smoking a cigarette, drinking a black coffee, and listening to the radio. It was something he did often in life. When he saw me he said, "Hey, kiddo." It was his face and his voice. It really felt like a special moment. It hurt to wake up from, but I also really treasure it because it gave me a chance to see him again. I believe it was his spirit paying you a visit to say goodbye. I've had it happen before as well. The people who care for us make sure we know that, even after they pass from this realm. A few months after my grandfather passed I had a dream where I was at a family birthday party, and I saw him. He looked so much healthier and happier in my dream. More like the man I remember growing up with, and I gave him a long deep hug. That's the end of what I remember of the dream. However, even as I type this, I can go back to the memory of my dream and feel that hug. I will always feel like that was him coming to me for that one final hug and to let me see him and remember him as he truly was one more time. We never said anything in the dream, but that hug meant so much more to me than I could ever say. I wish my dad would talk about his father more because I'm curious if anybody else in my family has shared this experience with him specifically. I know for me, I have a weird grieving process, and I do truly feel like that dream gave me a real life helping hand in dealing with his loss. It's so weird to have a dream feel so real with a lost loved one. However, such a beautiful treasure we can have. I had a similar experience with my grandfather after he passed, and my father was there as well. He passed when I was young, and it was probably the best dream I ever had. I remember just having a conversation about my life. He asked how I was, and just wanted me to know he's still watching, and they'll always love me. It still hits me hard every time I remember it. My grandma, who had been dead for years at this point, shows up in my dreams at her house. I even told her, "You're dead," but she insisted she was not. Upon waking, it was a long moment of rational thinking to remember she was gone. Well, you aren't wrong. She still lives on in your heart and memories. Last night I had a very vivid dream that I was happily married to the love of my life. This morning I woke up and after a minute of confusion felt extraordinarily lonely. Now that I think about it, this exact thing has happened several times in the past several years. Same. I feel like sometimes I've lived out a whole other life in my dream, where I have everything I want, but then wake up and it all comes crashing back. Really sucks. These are the worst dreams to wake up from. I thought a purple spider was waiting outside my hall and would eat me if I left my room when I was 8. Who said it isn't waiting now? That legit made me shiver. Lol. I sometimes have super intense action dreams where a good friend and I are up against the world in some dire, overused Hollywood plot. Conspiracy thrillers. Taking down billionaires in covert missions. Overthrowing a corrupt politician. It's all there. I know they're not real, but it makes me feel a little more empowered when I wake up to make the coffee. These types of dreams are always my favorite. Sometimes they'll be something straight out of a Michael Bay film. So many explosions. I'm still hoping my life so far is a nightmare I'm having as a child. I sometimes think the same. The fitting point where it started would have been around 10 years ago. The rest is just a very complicated nightmare. If I ever wake up, I know that there is pretty much one big choice in my life that I must change to not screw up. As a kid in the 90s, I dreamed that my neighbor had a rollerblade shop in her backyard and she said I could pick out any pair I wanted. The next morning I went out and popped my head over the fence and it was just a stupid normal backyard. No rollerblades for me. I had a dream I had a baby boy. It wasn't a super long dream, but it was so vivid and felt so real. Then I half woke up and frantically looked for him for longer than I care to admit before I realized I don't have kids. It was a weird crushing feeling. I'm not sure how to describe it, but I was definitely bummed that my son was gone. Damn, that's rough to hear. Are you trying to have a kid at the moment? If so, good luck. I hope it works out. The dream was like 6 or 7 years ago, so I wasn't at the time, but my fiance and I recently decided to try for a baby. However, health issues may prevent me from ever conceiving. It's kind of all up in the air right now. I appreciate your well wishes though. I had a dream where I woke up late. So I woke up in my dream thinking I was late. And then I woke up in real life thinking I was super late. I get this with exams. I have a dream that I slept through my last exam to graduate. Then I wake up and realize I actually missed the exam and have to tell my boss I can't start work for another year. Then I wake up and it's time for work. It's disorienting. I had a dream that the space shuttle blew up in one of the most vivid dreams I have ever had. 2 days before it happened. That made me question some things, but was probably just a stupid coincidence. The dream was so vivid that I jumped out of bed as soon as I woke up and typed out the dream and sent it to some friends on ICQ. 2 days later I woke up to phone calls and a whole crapload of new messages on ICQ and Ike. I eventually picked up the phone and was told to turn on CNN. I will never forget how vivid that dream was. I was watching a space shuttle launch on TV, which was for some reason being held in Central Park in New York, along with my family. This is when I remember the dream starting to get lucid. I looked closer at the TV, and it looked more and more sharp and vivid, and I ended up being pulled right into the TV. At that point, being aware that I'm dreaming, I remember sort of looking over Central Park from a great height. The same vantage point that I saw on TV. I slowly descended and ended up on top of a skyscraper just south of Central Park. It was some sort of a residential tower that doesn't actually exist. In my dream it was very tall. I remember feeling the breeze of the wind on my skin and the sunshine on my face as I stood on the roof of that building. In the distance I could see the space shuttle being set to launch right from Central Park. I was lucid, so I knew that this made no sense. But there it was. It was so vivid. Felt so real. If over-exaggerated in the way everything appeared. Super tall skyscrapers. An oversized space shuttle. The perfect amount of sun shining on everything. Producing an epic scene right in front of me. I remember being up on that skyscraper with a bunch of people all cheering and watching the launch. There was a countdown and the space shuttle slowly took off. But immediately had problems. As it for whatever reason started moving off to the left. Eventually there was some sort of explosion. And the space shuttle flew right into one of the skyscrapers. The skyscraper started falling. And the whole scene basically changed to a dark gloomy sky. As this was all happening, the last thing I remember is our building being hit by another one. Fire and smoke. And I woke up, jumped out of bed, ran to my computer, and typed out the most vivid dream I have ever had. 2 days later it was February 1st, 2003, and Space Shuttle Columbia disintegrated on re-entry as it was returning home. A completely different scenario than the one I saw in my dream. But I felt that tragedy in a strange way when it happened. That was a super weird dream and I haven't really had any like that since from what I can remember. Except for maybe some strange dreams I had when I was in New Orleans. If I remember correctly, NASA knew about the faulty tile beforehand and the possibility of breakup on re-entry was a known risk. I don't really remember, but I suspect there would have been a lot of speculation in the press. Maybe you heard this and it seeped into your subconscious. Had a dream a few years ago that grandma died. Woke up crying and called her. Didn't get an answer because she was asleep. Started freaking out and asked mom if grandma was okay. Mom laughed at me. I got a call from grandma after she had woken up and saw that I'd tried to call her. She was perfectly fine. AWW hope she continues to stay well for a long time. If you are new to TattleTale TV, please subscribe. We have new videos every day. Stay tuned for more coming up next.